It was a warm Friday morning in Los Angeles. The streets buzzed with routine, business people rushing to meetings, parents grabbing coffee, and in the middle of it all, a tall man in a black leather jacket quietly stepped out of his car and walked toward a downtown bank. That man was Steven Seagal. But you wouldn't have recognized him right away. His hair was tied back, his trademark sunglasses hid his eyes, and he wore jeans and a plain t-shirt. No entourage, no cameras, just a man running an errand. Inside, the bank was calm. A few customers stood in line, while two tellers chatted behind the counter. Steven approached the nearest one, a young woman named Clara, and gave her a polite nod. "Good morning," he said in his low, calm tone. "I'm here to sort out an issue with my account. I think there's been a freeze." Clara didn't look up from her computer. "Take a seat, sir. Someone will be with you shortly." Steven glanced around. The lobby was empty. "There's no one waiting," he said softly. Clara sighed and muttered under her breath, "Everyone thinks they're special." Then louder, she added, "You'll have to wait." "We're busy." A middle-aged manager named Mr. Reynolds overheard and walked over. He gave Steven a quick, judgmental look. His clothes, his accent, his quiet demeanor. "Sir," the manager said curtly, "we can't help you until you provide proper identification and an appointment." Steven nodded calmly. "Of course. I have my ID right here." But Reynolds just smirked. "You can't just walk into a corporate branch and demand service. Please step aside." The few people in the lobby began to watch. Some frowned, sensing the disrespect. Others just looked away. Steven said nothing more. He simply placed his ID on the counter and waited. Clara ignored it. Reynolds turned and walked off, shaking his head. The silence grew heavy. Steven stood still, his expression unreadable. He could have raised his voice. He could have reminded them who he was. But instead, he simply whispered, "All right, I understand." Then he turned and walked out the door. What happened next made the entire branch fall silent. Steven Seagal walked back into the bank 15 minutes later. This time, he wasn't here for a quiet resolution, he just wanted fairness. He had taken a deep breath outside, collected himself, and decided to give them one more chance to simply do their jobs. As he approached the counter again, the same teller, Clara, looked up with a frown. "Didn't I tell you to wait?" she said sharply, glancing toward the manager's office. Steven remained calm. "I did wait. You said someone would assist me, but no one did." Clara rolled her eyes. "Sir, if you don't have an appointment, you'll need to come back later. We're not here to fix every walk-in problem." The irony was the branch wasn't even busy. Only two customers sat in the waiting area, one filling out a form, another scrolling on his phone. Steven spoke softly. "I'm not asking for special treatment. I just need to access my account. There's a problem with a transaction that needs to be cleared today." Clara gave a sarcastic laugh. "Of course there is. Everyone says that when they're in trouble with the bank." Before Steven could reply, Mr. Reynolds, the branch manager, appeared again, irritation already written across his face. "Sir, is there an issue?" Clara quickly jumped in. "This man keeps insisting we drop everything to deal with his account." Steven turned toward Reynolds, his voice calm but firm. "I've been a client here for more than 10 years. I simply need to verify a wire transfer. I have identification, my account card, and all the details." Reynolds folded his arms. "You don't look like someone who maintains a business account with us." The room went silent. Even the two customers nearby lifted their heads at the tone in his voice. Steven raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly does someone like that look like?" Reynolds smirked. "Well, not like this." He gestured vaguely at Steven's casual clothes. The jeans, the plain shirt, the tied-back ponytail. "We have procedures for a reason. You can't just stroll in and demand high-level service." Steven took a slow breath. His patience was running thin, but his tone remained even. "Sir, I'm not demanding anything. I'm simply asking for help with an error on my account." Reynolds shrugged. "We'll see what we can do later. Please step aside so paying customers can be served." That line landed like a slap in the air. Several bystanders exchanged glances. One man whispered, "Paying customers? Isn't everyone here a customer?" Steven didn't move. He stood his ground quietly, eyes steady. Reynolds, trying to assert dominance, leaned forward. "Sir, if you continue to disrupt our workflow, I'll have to ask you to leave." Steven nodded slowly as if processing the words. You're asking me to leave for requesting access to my own account? Reynolds snapped, I'm asking you to follow instructions. Come back when you have proof of your balance or when the senior staff is available. Steven looked down at the ID still sitting untouched on the counter. You never even checked my information, he said softly. Clara sighed dramatically, picked up the card and squinted at it. Steven Seagal? She said, mispronouncing his name. Never heard of you. This doesn't look like a valid document. A couple of people nearby chuckled awkwardly. Someone in the back muttered, Wait, Seagal? Like the actor? But the staff didn't catch on. Steven finally took his ID back and said nothing more. Reynolds waved his hand dismissively. Sir, please, don't waste our time. You're holding up the line. There was no line. Only silence. Heavy and uncomfortable. Steven exhaled slowly, his face calm but unreadable. All right, he said finally. I understand. And with that he turned around and began walking toward the door again. As he reached the exit, a woman who'd been watching from the corner called out, Hey, I think that's Steven Seagal. Reynolds scoffed loudly. Yeah, right. And I'm the President of the United States. Laughter from Clara followed him out. But as the glass door closed behind Steven, the atmosphere shifted. A few customers shook their heads in disgust. One elderly man said under his breath, You don't treat people like that no matter who they are. Inside the branch, Reynolds brushed off the tension. Some people, he said to Clara, think they deserve VIP treatment because they saw a movie once. Clara laughed. Yeah, the guy probably just binged some old action films. None of them knew that in less than 10 minutes, the joke would be on them. Because Steven Seagal wasn't just any customer. He was also part of a corporate investor group that had recently acquired controlling interest in this very bank's regional operations, and he was about to remind everyone in that branch what true discipline and respect looked like. If you've ever been disrespected just because of how you looked, comment below. We want to hear your story. And tell us, which country and city are you watching this story from? Let's see where our global family's tuning in from. The warm California sun glared against the glass doors as Steven Seagal stepped outside the bank. He paused on the sidewalk, the sounds of city life blurring around him, car horns, footsteps, chatter. For a brief moment he stood still, breathing deeply. Onlookers might have thought he was just another man taking a second to calm down after a frustrating encounter. But behind those sunglasses, his mind was already sharp, focused, calculating. Steven wasn't angry. He had learned long ago that anger was a weapon best used with precision, not impulse. What bothered him wasn't how they treated him. It was how they might be treating others when no one was watching. The arrogance, the dismissal, the prejudice, all signs of a broken culture. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. One call, that's all it would take. But not yet. He didn't want revenge. He wanted revelation. Inside the branch, Clara was gossiping with another teller, still smirking. Did you see how serious he looked? Like he's some kind of big deal, she laughed. Mr. Reynolds, the manager, poured himself another cup of coffee. Yeah, these people come in thinking they can intimidate us. I've been in this business 20 years, I know their type. You mean polite and patient? One of the older tellers muttered under her breath, earning a glare from him. Reynolds waved her off. He's probably some washed-up actor trying to feel important. Clara giggled. Or maybe he thought those old karate movies would get him VIP service. Their laughter was loud enough that a few customers turned uncomfortably. One woman whispered to another, They're being really rude. The other replied, That man didn't do anything wrong. This is ridiculous. Meanwhile, Steven stood across the street watching through the tinted windows of his car. His driver, a man named Marcus, looked back through the rearview mirror. Boss, you good? He asked carefully. Steven nodded. Just observing. Marcus grinned slightly. They have no idea who they just talked down to. Steven's tone stayed quiet, but his words carried a weight that could freeze steel. Respect is shown in how you treat a stranger, not how you treat someone you recognize. Marcus nodded, understanding. Inside the branch, Reynolds finally noticed a few customers leaving early, shaking their heads. He frowned, muttering, People these days, so sensitive. Then glancing at Clara, he said, Make sure you note that man's name. If he comes back, tell security to deal with him. Steven watched as Reynolds wrote something down behind the counter. That was enough. He took one last sip from his water bottle, slid his phone open, and made a short, direct call. Yeah, he said quietly. It's me. I just visited the downtown branch. We need to talk about their management team. A pause. Then, yes, immediately, 10 minutes. That's all it would take. Back inside, Clara was scrolling on her phone when her screen lit up with a notification. Head office call incoming. She blinked in surprise and answered quickly, trying to sound professional. Good afternoon, this is Clara at the Wilshire branch. A firm voice on the other end replied, Is your manager available? This is corporate. Her smile vanished. Yes, one moment. She glanced nervously at Reynolds. Sir, your corporate's on the line, he frowned. Corporate? What for? She shrugged. They didn't say. Reynolds took the phone, confidence dripping from his tone. This is branch manager Reynolds. How can I help you? The voice on the other end was cold and precise. Mr. Reynolds, we've just received a complaint regarding your handling of a valued client. Please prepare all staff to meet with the regional director. He's on his way. Reynolds froze. Regional director? Coming here? Yes, in 10 minutes. The call ended. Clara's face went pale. What did they say? Reynolds swallowed. They're coming here now. A few staff exchanged uneasy glances. The older teller whispered, This sounds serious. The next 10 minutes felt like an eternity. The once busy branch was now thick with tension. Reynolds straightened his tie repeatedly, pacing. Clara dabbed her face with a tissue, murmuring, What if it's about that guy? Reynolds snapped, Don't be ridiculous. Corporate doesn't show up for random nobodies. But then, through the glass doors, 3 black SUVs pulled up to the curb. Men in suits stepped out, followed by a familiar figure. The moment Steven Seagal removed his sunglasses, the color drained from everyone's faces. Clara's mouth fell open. Reynolds' coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. Steven walked in slowly, calm as ever, flanked by the regional director of the bank. Every eye in the building followed him. Reynolds stammered, Mr. Seagal, I didn't realize. Steven's voice was quiet, almost gentle, but every word struck like thunder. You didn't have to know who I was, he said. You just had to do your job with respect. The entire room fell into stunned silence. If you were standing in that bank, would you have said something? Or stayed quiet like most people do? Tell us in the comments, and let us know which country and city you're watching from. The automatic doors hissed open as Steven Seagal stepped back into the bank. But this time he wasn't alone. 3 black SUVs idled outside, their engines purring like low thunder. The air in the branch shifted instantly. Every eye turned toward the entrance. Clara froze mid-sentence, her smile collapsing as the tall man in black removed his sunglasses. The familiar face, the sharp jawline, the calm intensity in his gaze. Recognition hit her like a lightning bolt. Oh my God, she whispered, voice trembling. That is Steven Seagal. The regional director, Mr. Donnelly, followed right behind him. A sharp, stern man in his 50s, wearing a navy suit and an expression that could shatter glass. 2 corporate auditors trailed close behind, holding clipboards and files. The staff knew something was terribly wrong. Reynolds, the manager, hurried forward, trying to piece together his confidence. Mr. Seagal, I didn't realize it was you. If we'd known, of course, Steven cut him off quietly. You would have treated me better. The words were calm, but they sliced through the air like a blade. Reynolds' mouth opened, but no sound came out. Mr. Donnelly stepped forward. Mr. Seagal contacted corporate less than 15 minutes ago. He reported severe misconduct at this branch, including discrimination, negligence, and unprofessional behavior. I came immediately. The staff stood frozen. Clara's hand shook as she fidgeted with her name badge. One of the junior tellers, clearly frightened, whispered, Sir, we didn't mean any harm. Steven turned to face the entire room. His tone wasn't angry. It was controlled, the kind of calm that demanded attention. Respect, he said, isn't about titles or appearances. It's about how you treat every person who walks through that door. Mr. Donnelly nodded gravely. Mr. Seagal is not only a valued client, he's also part of the investor group that owns a significant stake in this regional operation. He's been quietly involved in the restructuring of this bank for months. A collective gasp rippled through the branch. Clara's face turned white. Reynolds stumbled backward, his composure cracking. Sir, I had no idea, he stammered. We were just following policy. Steven's eyes narrowed slightly. Policy didn't make you disrespectful, Mr. Reynolds. That was your choice. He turned slightly, glancing toward the other employees. And none of you thought to step in? Not one. The older teller who had defended him earlier lowered her head. I tried, sir, she murmured. But Stephen raised a hand. I know, and I appreciate it. His voice softened for just a moment before turning firm again, but silence in the face of injustice still speaks volumes. Mr. Donnelly stepped closer to the counter. I'll be conducting an immediate audit of this branch's customer service records and employee conduct. Mr. Reynolds, your office, now. Reynolds nodded weakly and walked toward his office, but Stephen's voice stopped him mid-step. Leave the coffee cup, he said flatly. You won't be needing it. A few of the customers who had stayed to watch gasped, whispering to one another. Phones were already out, recording. Within minutes, this moment would be online. Millions would see a legendary actor known for his calm discipline walking into a bank and exposing the arrogance of those who judged him. Reynolds tried to explain himself once more. It wasn't personal, sir. We just get all kinds of people in here, and Stephen's calm expression hardened slightly. And you assume the worst about them. You looked at me and decided I wasn't worth your time. That's not banking. That's prejudice. Mr. Donnelly motioned for the auditors to start gathering documents. Papers shuffled. Computers clicked. The room buzzed with quiet panic. Clara stepped forward hesitantly, her voice trembling. Mr. Seagal, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I thought, Stephen turned his gaze to her. You thought you were above someone you didn't recognize. Next time you see a man waiting quietly for help, remember this. Power doesn't always announce itself. Tears welled in her eyes. Are we being fired? Stephen didn't answer. He simply looked at Mr. Donnelly. The regional director took a breath. Effective immediately, the current management of this branch is suspended pending review. HR will contact each of you for a formal interview. Until then, please gather your belongings. The room fell into complete silence. Reynolds looked like the ground had vanished beneath him. Clara covered her mouth, whispering, I can't believe this is happening. Stephen adjusted his cufflinks, then turned toward the door. I don't enjoy seeing anyone lose their job, he said quietly. But I do believe in accountability. Maybe this will remind you, respect should never depend on recognition. As he walked out, the doors slid open again, letting in a wave of hot air and city noise. People outside watched as he stepped into the waiting SUV, calm as ever. Inside the bank, the stunned employees stood motionless, the echo of his words hanging heavy in the air. What would you have done if you were the manager in this situation? Be honest. Would you have treated him differently or the same if you didn't recognize him? Tell us in the comments and drop your country and city below. The branch was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. The sound of papers rustling and quiet sniffles filled the space as corporate auditors continued their work. A few customers still stood near the back, pretending to browse. Brochures, but everyone knew they were witnessing something unforgettable. Steven Seagal hadn't left yet. He stood near the counter, arms folded, watching the chaos he had calmly set in motion. His face was unreadable, not smug, not angry, just steady, like a man who had seen this story unfold too many times before. Across from him, the now disgraced manager, Mr. Reynolds, sat behind his desk, nervously tapping his fingers. He looked like a man drowning in his own excuses. Clara stood nearby, holding a tissue, her eyes red. The rest of the staff gathered awkwardly, waiting for some kind of verdict. Mr. Donnelly, the regional director, was on a call near the window, speaking in a low but serious tone. Yes, Mr. Seagal is still here. Yes, I've suspended the entire management team pending investigation. No, sir, there's no mistaking the footage. It's already circulating online. Stephen could hear every word, but he didn't react. He didn't need to. The truth was already working faster than punishment ever could. Finally, he turned to the staff and broke the silence. When I walked in here today, he said slowly, I was treated like a problem. Not a person, not a client. Just an inconvenience. No one dared speak. Clara wiped another tear. Reynolds looked down. Stephen continued, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw my weight around. I gave you every chance to treat me with respect. And you chose pride instead. He stepped closer to the counter. His voice deepened, calm but commanding. I've been in more than a few fights in my life, but you know what's harder than any physical battle? Learning to control your ego. That's what real strength is. Mr. Donnelly ended his call and stepped closer, nodding silently, letting Steven speak. The man who had built a career on discipline and humility now stood as both accuser and teacher. Steven pointed toward Reynolds. You, sir, set the tone. A team follows its leader. If the leader treats people like they're beneath him, that behavior spreads like poison. Reynolds finally looked up. His voice shook. You're right, Mr. Seagal. I let my arrogance get the best of me. I thought you were just someone trying to waste my time. Steven nodded slightly. And now you see where that mindset leads. You thought I was nobody, and that gave you permission to be unkind. He turned to Clara. You laughed. You joined in. You saw what was wrong and you added fuel to it. Tell me something, Clara. Would you have done the same if I looked different, dressed different, spoke differently? Her lip trembled. No, sir. I don't think so. I didn't realize how ugly it was until I saw it from the outside. Steven's gaze softened for a brief second. The first step to change is realizing what you've become. You've got that chance now. Use it. He looked around at the rest of the employees, some ashamed, some inspired, all silent. I'm not here to destroy lives, he said, his tone lower now. But I am here to remind you that every person who walks through that door has a story. You never know who you're talking to, or what they've been through. The uniform, the title, the position, all of that means nothing if you can't show basic humanity. Mr. Donnelly cleared his throat. Mr. Seagal, I think they understand now. Corporate will be issuing formal reviews and this entire branch will undergo mandatory ethics and leadership training, effective immediately. Steven nodded. That's good. But remember, policies don't change people. Choices do. He started walking toward the exit, then paused mid-step and turned back, his voice carrying one final weight. I've seen tough men crumble and arrogant men fall. I've seen people fight for fame, money, and power, and lose everything because they forgot how to treat others with respect. Don't make that mistake. No one moved as he walked to the doors. Customers outside, realizing what was happening, began clapping softly. The sound grew, echoing into the lobby. Phones were still filming. Within minutes, this scene, the calm lecture, the humbled staff, the moral power, would be viral across every platform. Steven stopped just before stepping outside. I'm not your enemy, he said quietly, but life has a way of teaching lessons when you least expect them. Today, you got yours. With that, he pushed open the door and walked out into the sunlight. The applause followed him down the steps. Inside, Clara sank into a chair, whispering, he didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just spoke truth. Reynolds nodded weakly, eyes glistening. And that's what makes it worse. Mr. Donnelly turned to the stunned employees. Let this moment be a warning and a chance. Not everyone gets one. The doors shut behind Steven as the SUVs rolled away, leaving behind a branch full of people who would never forget what had just happened. If you were in Steven's place, would you have done the same or walked away quietly? Comment below and tell us what you would have said in that moment. Also, where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments. By the time Steven Seagal's SUV reached the end of the block, the world had already begun watching. A bystander's shaky phone video, only 3 minutes long, was posted online with the caption, Steven Seagal just humbled an entire bank with pure calm energy. Within 10 minutes, the clip spread across social media platforms like wildfire. Within an hour, it had over 2 million views. By the end of the day, news outlets were calling it the Seagal Bank incident. In the video, Steven's composed voice carried the weight of truth. Respect shouldn't depend on recognition. That one line echoed across the internet, turned into quotes, memes, TikToks, and YouTube shorts. Comment sections filled with applause and outrage in equal measure. This man handled it like a true legend, He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He educated. Every customer service worker needs to watch this. Meanwhile, at the bank's corporate headquarters, chaos unfolded. Phones rang nonstop. PR executives rushed into emergency meetings. The CEO, Margaret Hill, watched the video in stunned silence before slamming her hand on the desk. "Get me the regional director, now." Moments later, Mr. Donnelly was on a video call, sweat beading on his forehead. "Ma'am, we're taking immediate corrective action. The entire Wilshire branch is under review. Staff suspended, retraining initiated." Margaret interrupted sharply. "Retraining isn't enough. This isn't a PR hiccup, this is a global embarrassment. That man is an investor, and we disrespected him on camera." The call ended with a single order. "Fix this, and make it right with Mr. Seagal." Across the city, Clara sat at home staring at her phone. Her face looked pale and tired. Every news outlet replayed her awkward smile, her dismissive tone, her laugh. In the comments, people weren't kind. Some called her names. Others demanded her firing. She scrolled through them in silence, tears rolling down her cheeks. She hadn't realized how cruel she sounded. How easily a moment of arrogance could become her downfall. Reynolds was no better off. He'd spent the day fielding calls from HR, from reporters, and from former colleagues. His years of management, his pride in his branch, were all gone overnight. He turned off his phone and sat in the dark, thinking about Steven's words. "Respect is how you treat a stranger." That line wouldn't leave his head. While the world buzzed with gossip and judgment, Steven stayed quiet. He didn't post, didn't comment, didn't gloat. But 2 days later, he appeared at a press conference. Not as a movie star, but as a man with a message. Cameras flashed as he stepped up to the podium in a simple black suit. No entourage, no showmanship. "I've seen a lot of fights in my life," he began. "Some are fought with fists, some with words, but the most dangerous ones are fought with ego." Reporters leaned in. His tone was calm, deliberate, the same steady rhythm that had made the viral clip so powerful. "What happened at that bank wasn't just about me," Steven continued. "It was about a culture of assumption. Too often we judge people by what they look like, how they dress, or what we think they are. But true respect doesn't come from recognition, it comes from character." The room fell silent. You could hear the camera shutters clicking softly like rain. "I didn't want anyone fired," he said. "I wanted them and everyone watching it to reflect. You don't need fame to deserve decency. You don't need power to deserve patience. Every person deserves respect." The clip from that speech went even more viral than the original video. It trended under hashtags like "Son, Respect like Seagal," and "Ego is the enemy." People began sharing their own stories. Waiters ignored by customers, workers mistreated by bosses, strangers judged unfairly. Steven's calm confrontation had sparked something bigger, a global conversation about everyday respect. Even the bank responded publicly. The CEO herself recorded a statement. "We deeply regret the conduct at our Wilshire branch and are implementing full-scale reforms to ensure all clients, famous or not, are treated with equal dignity." They invited Steven to consult on their new ethics training program. He agreed, but only under one condition: that the very staff who disrespected him attend the first session in person. When Clara and Reynolds walked into that conference room weeks later, they were nervous. They expected anger, maybe humiliation. Instead, Steven greeted them with a nod. "I'm not here to shame you," he said quietly. "I'm here to make sure you grow." He showed them the video again, pausing at key moments, pointing out not just their mistakes, but their opportunities to choose differently. By the end of the session, Clara was crying again, but this time it was out of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not destroying us, for teaching us." Steven gave a small smile. "The lesson's not for you alone. It's for everyone watching." He turned to the camera crew filming the training and said, "Every day you'll meet someone who tests your patience, your humility, your compassion. That's your moment to show who you really are." As the credits rolled on the official training video, one phrase appeared on screen, the same words that had ignited millions of hearts online. Respect shouldn't depend on recognition. What did you learn from this story? Would you have forgiven the staff like Steven did, or made them face harsher consequences? Tell us your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to share where you're watching from, your city and country. Weeks passed, but the world was still talking about Steven Seagal and the bank incident. The viral video had long crossed 200 million views. Schools used it in ethics classes. Motivational speakers quoted his lines. Even talk shows and podcasts discussed how one calm moment of dignity changed everything. People didn't just see a celebrity humbling a rude manager. They saw the power of restraint, the beauty of grace under pressure, and the importance of respect in everyday life. Everywhere Steven went, airports, restaurants, gyms, people stopped him. Some thanked him for standing up without losing his temper. Others said his words had changed how they treated people at work. One afternoon, he received a letter from a young man in Chicago. "I used to snap at customers all the time," the letter read. "After seeing your video, I started listening before reacting. Last week, my manager said he noticed the change. You helped me become better, not just at my job, but as a person." Steven read the letter twice, folded it neatly, and smiled. That was the real victory. Not the headlines, not the views, but the quiet transformation happening inside people everywhere. Meanwhile, the bank that had once embarrassed itself became a symbol of change. They launched a nationwide campaign called Serve with Respect. Commercials featured employees talking about empathy, patience, and fairness. The very branch where it all happened was completely renovated. Brighter colors, open spaces, and a new slogan on the wall: "Every customer is a VIP." The staff invited Steven back for the reopening. Cameras flashed as he walked through the same glass doors where it had all begun. This time the smiles were genuine. Clara approached him nervously, holding out her hand. "Mr. Seagal," she said softly, "I just wanted to say thank you, not for forgiving us, but for holding us accountable. That moment changed my life." Steven shook her hand. "Good," he replied gently. "That means it was worth it." Reynolds was there too, no longer in a suit, but volunteering as part of the bank's community outreach program. He looked up at Steven and said, "You were right. Leadership isn't about authority. It's about example. I'm learning that now." Steven nodded, a small but proud smile crossing his face. "That's a good start, Mr. Reynolds." Reporters gathered around, asking questions about how he felt returning to the same place that had once disrespected him. Steven took a breath, then looked directly into the nearest camera. "When people see that video," he said, "they think it's about a celebrity getting mistreated. But it's not. It's about how anyone can be mistreated and how we choose to respond." He paused for a moment, his voice firm but calm. "I didn't fight that day because I wanted to win. I stood my ground because I wanted to teach. Anger might make noise, but respect makes impact." That line became the headline everywhere. Anger makes noise, respect makes impact. The moment felt almost poetic. The same man who once walked out of those doors ignored and dismissed was now standing there, not in vengeance, but in peace. As he left the branch, dozens of people outside were holding signs. "Thank you for standing tall, Steven. Respect for everyone everywhere." He smiled faintly, waved, and walked toward his car as the sun dipped behind the buildings. The crowd applauded him, not for a movie star, but for a man who had turned humiliation into a global message of humanity. That night, Steven posted just one sentence on his social media: "Be kind when no one's watching." That's where true strength lives. It was shared millions of times, and as the story faded from headlines, the message lived on. In homes, in workplaces, in the quiet choices people made every day. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't fight back. It's stand tall, speak calmly, and remind the world that respect is the real power. If you believe that no one should ever be judged by appearance, and that respect should be given to everyone, type respect in the comments below. And if Steven's story inspired you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, true stories that restore faith in humanity.